Well, welcome viewers, whenever, wherever, and what time you're watching this. Welcome to another episode of our All Good Things podcast. Now, I think we're 21, 21st episode. It feels like that number should have...
Adam, you look very different. You've kept the glasses, but I can't help but notice you've changed.
I went into the green room and had a quick makeover between...
You look great.
Yeah.
Yes, so here we are. We've made it to 21.
We have.
And another episode. You're very welcome. And we are continuing. If you happen to watch the episode 20, whenever that was, prior to this, we are kind of continuing in many respects that discussion. We're thinking more about the wonders of Genesis, the narratives, the personalities, the family dynamics and relationships and all of that. In Genesis, picking up, as we looked at last time, on what you, Mr. Munro, have been doing in your school assemblies in particular. So, I can't remember where we got to. Where did we get to at the end of the last episode? We ought to pick up from there.
Just finished on Made in the Image.
Yes.
Talking about Adam and Eve and briefly talking about the fall.
Yeah.
And a bit about identity and what that means. And so where are you going after kind of that early little section of Genesis? Where do we go to after kind of Adam and Eve and that?
So the logical place to then next go is to go to Cain and Abel, and watching as sin is continue to spread through the seed of Adam and Eve in that entire story. Now, for assemblies, you can't talk about murder, the sensitivity issues within that. So what we're tending to focus a little bit more on is the consequences of anger and jealousy. So obviously the fact that the two different sacrifices are viewed differently, and then the response of one brother obviously being a little bit more angered than the other one. And so focusing, I think, on where that can lead as well is important. It's establishing obviously the continuation of sin through the children. Corporate sin is what I'd call that to adults. It's hard to talk about corporate sin to a child. That's a much harder thing to go like, hang on a second, I'm born sinful. That's a weird thing to go around. So we tend to sort of talk about that more in passing and more of a like that we are born and our hearts turn to sin still. So that's normally what I go over with that. Obviously it's very tricky to talk about Cain and Abel without getting into tricky waters, as it were.
But obviously within that you've got the fall and the brokenness that steps into the world, and some of the immediate consequences of relationships and how you navigate. I have older brothers. The dynamics of it. I don't know today. Which ones are older?
I think it's. Is it not Cain? I thought Cain's the older one, and there's jealousy of his younger brother, but maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong on that.
I don't think she was born.
We should have worked this out before.
Yeah, she was even born Cain.
Sorry. He's like
Cain is older.
Yes, I thought so. Because it's another example of Old Testament, the younger child being viewed more favourably in the eyes of the Lord, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We don't go into that, sadly, either in assemblies that much, mainly because it's very hard to get a massive overview of Old Testament.
And birthrights.
And birthrights and things like that, especially because birthrights is just not something that's within the sort of Western zeitgeist, I suppose.
But you still see that in terms of, like, it's... Because part of the idea of here is to be able to dig a little deeper into some of these areas of seeing what it might mean as a parent, as a minister, as a church, to understand and navigate the differences of siblings and brothers and sisters within relationships. Even if you take it into the generic brothers and sisters in terms of just the brothers and sisters of all believers, and our dynamics of jealousy. Like at one point, you're talking this to kids, but it's still so massively applicable to us, and we can fall into those patterns of behaviour.
In an assembly, I would always start off a session relating it to a generalised set of topics that they can relate to, that relate to the passage. So I think the section for Cain and Abel is talking about that sibling relationship and that jealousy of like, if you and your brother made something and your dad praises one but scolds the other, then you're going to naturally, what are you feeling? You're probably feeling angry, you're probably feeling jealous. What do? Maybe you destroy the artwork, that kind of thing, or you hit your brother. And I think the fact that actually the children can directly relate to the actions of what's happening in the Bible takes away that idea of it's just like a fairy story kind of thing of like, the Bible's got all this flowery stuff that happens in it. It's all kind of characters that don't exist. To it being, no, actually these are real stories that are still applicable of like that sin that Cain shows in his jealousy and his desire to be appreciated and loved by the Lord is still something that we will feel today, and we will still have probably similar, maybe not quite as extreme reactions as Cain. Yeah. But it's still there, right?
Yeah.
It's
the underlying issues, or not principles is the wrong word. You know what I mean? The underlying, as you say, patterns of behaviour, human nature. Going back to the Romans one you mentioned previously.
Yes.
All have sinned, etc., etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you see everything, like, you only need to ask someone a few questions about their family dynamic and relationships, and you hear someone like, you always used to get away with everything, or life was so much stricter for me, or whatever it is, and they were the kind of the golden child, could do no wrong, and the struggles and the pains of that. My mum used to go to massive lengths to try and make sure everything was equal. Huge emphasis, to the extent that she would kind of go, call me up. It's quite nice to receive a phone call like this every now and then. She'd call up, I've just done this for my brother, for your brother, so I'm doing this for you. And they're like, cool.
Interesting.
We had a similar thing, and just the two of us, me and my sister. And I think, as you say, Jim, that parents work hard to be even-handed. And I have remember similar comments. Well, I've just helped your sister out with this, ergo, therefore. And that was always about this, like you said,
Obviously, you're both parents. How do you balance? Obviously, we're talking a little bit about family dynamics and brothers and sisters in this circumstance, but how, as parents, do you mediate those kinds of interactions to your own children? How do you display godly character to them with children that I assume have got better biblical teaching than maybe some of the ones that I deal with? But, that must be quite a challenge, I imagine.
Oh, you go first. I'm way too new at this.
4 years of experience. You'd be training somebody if you were in an office environment.
I guess so.
Yeah, well, I think there's no easy answer. It's a tricky, very tricky. It's like we said, trying to be even-handed and fair, and try not to overreact. But then equally, if there is an issue, you've got to face it and deal with it. I think just as a sort of jokey aside, I was sharing off camera to Jim when we started. I told my senior partner, Emma, that we were doing this, and she said, "You're qualified to talk about it." I think, as far as I know, I do most of it in terms of the day-to-day stuff. I think just that you talked about, your family, your history, parenting, and I remember James Hughes, our vicar, he often says, like it or not, we as parent in light of our own parents, whether that's they did a pretty good job and we liked it, we'll do it in a similar way, or no, we're going to do it in a completely different way. But nevertheless, we're still in relation to them. I think of my own parenting. Dad was, it's like, if you'd done something wrong, it wasn't like wait till your father gets home and you were in terror behind the sofa, but it was like, if it's got escalated to Dad,
yes,
it's
big.
It's big. And I think for me, it's a bit like that. And then, sometimes there'll be an issue and Emma's sort of, right, you need to talk to Dad about this now. And then it's like, right, okay, this is, whichever child it is. So that's how it's worked. But I think it's just trying to be fair, sort of sound but fair.
Yeah.
When you have done something wrong, there are consequences, big or small, and people deal with it. But as I say, not over it. And I think of the two of us, I'm fairly more calmer and more even keels. So
we'll get Emma in next.
Yes, I know.
Should have both of you in, shouldn't it?
The next session will be on the.
It's going to be Mr. and Mrs. And then we'll go like, Emma, what do you think James said about your parenting style?
I agree. But as I say, it was no easy answers, but that was just some off the top thoughts of how it works in our family, at least.
Yeah. I think starting to answer the question, I'm going to start back with the Genesis.
Yeah.
And that the first relational fallout and accusation that happens within Genesis is not between Cain and Abel; it's between Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
It's between the parents. It is, because it's all like, well, I think it's all well and good me attempting to teach the girls how to treat one another. What they learn is how I treat their mother. And how and does that. During you have Adam going, it wasn't me, it was that woman that I'm good luck, if that's how your sentence is starting. It's and that's the challenge. That's how you teach them about forgiveness and love and care and how to treat one another by the way you listen and talk to each other. And similarly when you're going into later on to thinking about how do you teach relationships. I learned how to. My father taught me how to treat a woman, right? Because I just saw him every day, and he would do things, and he would serve, and he would serve.
Yeah.
And he was an incredibly devoted and very loving husband.
Yeah.
And that was just an unbelievable blessing to me. One of the little things that I think Jasmine's happy with is my dad. A cup of tea every morning was delivered by my dad to my mum, and so it was just a thing that's just what you did. And so again I think there's like the odd thing that I start to do with the girls as they increasingly begin to fight with one another, but it's that if you haven't got that underlying atmosphere, and that's the real challenge I thought getting married didn't really force me to have to deal with any selfishness, because by and large it was me marrying another adult who was, by and large, we functioned in our own life. We didn't have to give up too much, and we could kind of coexist with one another and make the odd sacrifice, but it wasn't massive. When the child then comes into it, it's just so exposing, and that can be the pain of it, because marital relationships are not easily, and therefore how do you navigate that? And then see, because you could
especially when they're little, of course. There's so much time, perhaps particularly for mum when they're very little, more and then but you're absolutely right. It's this whole other centred thing, particularly when the little like holidays. I think you and I had a conversation, Jim. Before I remember you saying your holiday revolved around crashing out in the sun lounge, absolutely as little as possible.
Yes.
Lifting the arm for another sip of whatever beverage, But now, of course, you particularly with little ones, you couldn't be focused on them and stuff, and rightly so. But it's a whole other dynamic, a whole other set of relationships that you have to navigate. But you're right. I mean, modelling good behaviours and the importance of role models. Picking up on your point, it's just so important, isn't it? And you certainly, I agree with you saying, one feels very blessed to have had that growing up, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, for me, it's a funny one, because my dad sadly wasn't Christian, but yet he kind of modelled quite Christian-esque behaviour in a weird kind of a way, So that's a whole conversation for another time. But
I was going to sort of expanding on that question. When I was younger, for example, my dad, I think, attempted to engage me in Bible study. When as parents, or how as parents, do you decide that you're going to be starting up that active relationship of that parent-child discipleship? Because I think that as a youth worker, I think it's easy to look at really good examples within the church, or look to good examples elsewhere and go like, it would be amazing if our parents were discipling our children at home, what that looks like. Obviously, praying with their children, reading with their children, displaying godly character, encouraging them to come to church consistently each and every week if they're able to, sharing the importance of their relationship with God actively in their lives, not just sort of passively going, I'm a Christian kind of thing, but living it. I think as a youth worker, it's easy for me to go like, we should our parents should be doing that, but I'm not the one that's living that. So to condense that into a simpler question, how and when do you display the Bible and teach those points?
I'll jump in there. I think for us, again, perhaps particularly when the kids were younger, it was, and still is to a great extent. Although we, like everybody, we ebb and flow and what it was the meal table, the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And so we talk about what we've been doing at church and so on around the meal table, and then try and pick up on what I'm doing in my job, of course. But then we try to get a thing when the kids are little. We'd have whatever Bible reading notes it was, and then books you can colour in and put stickers in and do things. And then for a while we do it together around the kitchen table, like when they come in from school. We and Emma and I stop what we're doing, come and have a cup of tea or whatever, and do our Bible notes together. And then you'd forget for a while, and they'd pick it up again. And then, so we as I say, we ebbs and flow, but we've tried to do that, to do that. And we prayed together, and we all prayed together. My daughter Nancy started secondary school for the first time on Monday, so we had a family group hug and a quick arrow prayer thing before they go out.
Well, that's really lovely.
Do that. And thankfully, praise the Lord, prayers are really answered, because Nancy has suffered a bit from anxiety, but she's been to school. First week so far, we're sort of more than halfway through.
Fantastic.
That has been a real answer. So it's that kind of thing. I think I'm a big believer in, and I think we've lost that. We're talking about social media and stuff, and in the previous episode. For me, I'd say one of the key things that parents is eating together as a family, and we've tried really hard to do that. Sit around with dining table, and I have to tell them, and myself. We've got I've got this in a tin. Stick the phones in there. Include you, Mum. Because it goes off. And you think, I'll just answer this. It's so and so from the Tots group. Well, it can wait for an half an hour. And then so many things come out, including talking about Christianity around the table. So that's how we've done it.
So I guess for me, the way I approach it is there's maybe two sides to how I look at it. One, it flows massively on from what I was just talking about in terms of relationship dynamics are somewhat seen by hell. That it's making sure that I'm not hiding my faith away from them, and they're seeing that. So one of the things I like is worship music and how to do that. So I'll make sure we have it on the house, and either worship or quite consciously we'll take them and make sure that they see us worshipping. And it's quite interesting to see how much they start picking up on it and copying behaviour and things like that. And so they see that I have a prayer life. They see that Mum and Dad have Bibles out, and that they read them and they're talking about it, or that when we're struggling, they hear us going, we should pray about it, or we've got friends over and something's going on, and we're like, let's pray about it, and the kids are there and they see that, and that kind of the cultural atmosphere and cultivating that. Now obviously that's easier and harder depending on your family situation and the relationship of your faith with your spouse and how that works, but like you said, it's difficult to be intentional about that. Then there's things we do about, like, we have kids books, we read them the parables of Jesus. Isla picks them at the moment. She's picking lots about money that are very convicting towards me.
Oh, really?
It's genuinely mad. The ones, some of her favourites are the camel going through the eye of the needle, and the rich man who builds many barns and then dies before he gets to receive it, and she keeps on picking them. I'm like,
interesting.
Oh Lord, have mercy. I'm like, oh Lord, have mercy.
When's the big fancy mansion coming up in your future? Then?
Well, it's not. I'm putting it away.
Right.
So there's things like that, and praying together. Jasmine, instrumental in her faith, was a little book, and so there's little things like that, and it's trying to just have them around, so it's interested, and it's there, and it's things for them to pick up and engage with. So that's from the kind of like quite soft ways of of making sure that that's the kind of atmosphere of it that it is. And in some ways there's a simplicity to that, because it's like, before going, oh, how do I do this to my kids, just going, what is my relationship with God like? And how do I make sure that that's the focus, and, or probably more importantly, that there's plenty of mercy and grace there. Similar with, like, back to relationships. If there's, with parenting, if there's not much mercy and grace between me and God, I have very little for anyone else, and that just becomes, everything becomes very restrictive in there. Within that,
things to be clear.
And then from a I guess teaching standpoint, in terms of what that is, from my perspective, it might be slightly different depending on your dynamic of you and your children now. But obviously, first, pray for my kids. They're being raised as vicars' children. Which is a particular kind of thing, and we were just talking about,
its own subset of challenges.
It is. They are often, or will so regularly be the first people in the door, last people out, or there, and just expect it to be there. As they grow up, there will be a very large expectation on them and assumptions made about what they think and what they believe because of me, and that can help sometimes, and that can be really, really difficult, having spent a lot of time speaking with lots of kids who went through that. I guess you could, I don't know what your experience of your dad being a...
Similarly, I think growing up as a vicar's kid explicitly was really difficult, because actually I'd say it pushed me away from faith as a whole. There was definitely a feeling of, especially because there were people at my dad's church who weren't, let's put it as, not fans of him necessarily in every decision. That a lot of that, I felt, was getting put onto me as their child, because there was a degree of treatment and expectations that I felt was placed upon me, that, when you're that early on in your faith, you're not sure you have all the answers for. And I think I spent quite a long time not specifically going, I think I wouldn't answer questions because I was worried that I'd be wrong, and if I was wrong, it made my dad look bad, because then my dad's not doing a good enough job teaching me. And so you almost stunt your own growth as a result of it, because you're worried about making your parent look bad. In fact, I would frequently, I think one of the things my dad talks about was, I quit going to our equivalent of Fuel and Salt Cafe, because I wanted to go to all of the services that he was doing during the day and be in the service serving, trying to some extent probably going, I want to show my dad that I'm applying what the Bible has to teach, but also it makes my dad look better that I'm not going into this. And a lot of it, there was also other parts of it feeling like I'd heard the same story 1,000 times, and I think that's more to do with youth work syllabuses and lack of diversity in terms of the breadth of the Bible that you're shown. But I think as a child I found that quite challenging. It's
and that's what so for me, I feel I will be quite guard dog protective of their ability to be non-compliant, and to disagree, and to have the freedom, and to not have to comply with everything, because the danger is, and I think lots of Christian players can fall into this, is of trying to make sure that we are instilling the correct behaviour rather than the correct heart.
Yes. And
so it's going, like, similar to that, it's like, I'm serving because it's the right thing to do. Whether it's actually boiled out of the hard place of the love of Christ, because then what you are creating is little Pharisees rather than
works righteousness
rather than, and it's and that is challenge, and it can be challenging even with one of the things we do at Simple Things is with me and Jasmine talk a lot, because there's a different culture on this of please and thank you and sorry. But especially in English culture, we train kids to say it rather than, and you can tell. I'm not interested in whether they've said it. I'm interested in whether they are. Are you thankful? And can you see that and express that? Have they or going in the same way? Like I would, brothers and sisters. And I understand why my parents did this, but they go, "Oh, apologise to your brother." I'm sorry. There's no
the political apology.
there's no repentance.
Yeah, I'm sorry I got found out.
Yes. I'm sorry
I got caught.
Yes.
I'm sorry I didn't hit you harder. And it's like, well, that's not repentance. That's not that. And then when they grow up, if they grow up and hearing that, so it's not. And this is why I talked to him about grace and mercy, is because saying that sets a standard of the challenge before us, whether it's parents, whether it's ministers, whether it's church, family, looking after other people. It's the standard is always set very high, and therefore how much kind of freedom we have to get it wrong, and then to try and repair with them, is another massive.
You mentioned a really interesting quote while we were having some technical difficulties earlier. That a friend had told you about being the parent being more interested in the questions they ask.
Yes. This was a guy that I used to work for, and similar situation that he was a professional Christian and minister and spoke, and he had 3 kids, and he said he used to say to his kids regularly, because of me, people will assume a lot of things about you, believe things and think things that you don't. I can't do anything about that, and I'm sorry about that. I won't be impressed that you believe what I believe. I will be impressed by the kind of questions that you ask, and really giving that ability to be genuinely inquisitive and explore. It requires probably quite a lot of faith in order to do that God is the one actually because you have to allow them to ask very difficult questions, and as they grow, make very difficult situations. Like I can remember at one point talking to a different minister who'd done something similar, talking to allowing his teenage son to step into a relationship that he knew was a bad idea, but was like, I got to kind of somewhat let them make their own mistakes and allow them to navigate that, and how you
that's a challenge.
Step in on those moments, because you, as a parent, you do have degrees of power, but that often it can be quite a facade of power, in the sense that I can force you to comply in this moment, and I will get you to do what is right, but you haven't installed anything, and the moment that
you won't learn anything from that,
and the moment that is lifted, they'll go and go back to what they want anyway. And so you have to sow what you sow in faith.
It's like, I'm using the phrase in a preach I've got coming up, we need to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. If that makes sense, So it's not just, do as I say, but, do as you see me doing as well. It's something you're absolutely right. The point you're making, Jim. Yeah.
And it requires quite a painful level of self-awareness to kind of, to see what are the things that like are really important and not important. Like in that situation, it's like sometimes we can be so like paranoid about the kind of relationships that they step into and what's happening in that sphere, but we're not half as worried about, like we were talking about in the previous episode, about whether their identity is truly rooted in original beauty. Feeling that, and it's like, but no, these things are going wrong, and they've done this and this and this and this. It's like, well, there's plenty of things that are equally as important, and it's like that's probably saying much more about us and our worries than it is necessarily about what God is primarily worried about.
Well, I think we've barely even scratched the surface on this topic. I mean, there's a whole host of
quite
things. I mean, and not for now, but for me, we're getting into the stage of parent, particularly with Tom and Nancy's got a smartphone now, so we get into the minefield of social media and online and all the pressures that brings, and then also.
Whereas I've got that area sorted in my life. I have a perfectly healthy relationship with my phone.
And then, of course, we're increasingly experiencing, and then this is definitely for another time, but then you've got the issue on the one hand of, phones, online, social media, but then you've got other parents, perhaps particularly non-Christian parents, have a completely different perspective on that as to what's acceptable and not.
Yes.
Like
And a child's view of it being an injustice that you're...
it's like, my friend, Fred, his parents let him play some 18-rated, computer game or watch...
For as long as they want all hours of the day.
Well, we have a different view on that, so that's a whole other challenge of itself, but that's perhaps for another time.
I'd love to spend a little bit more on this topic. In fact, maybe if we peg this to talk about another time, because I think we could talk about parenting and, well, not that I could talk about it, but I could talk about the children's view of it at least. Till the cows come home. But we should probably wrap up.
Well, we have, because also we need to vacate our recording studio, because I believe
a visitor.
We have a visitor. The Archdeacon, no less, will be wanting to look in all the cupboards and make sure we've not stolen the candlesticks and the silverware to pay for the new camera or something. So we better wrap it up there.
But I guess just before we go, important to say, thank you obviously for all that you do, the prayer and care and the opportunity the church has, but to do that,
stuff that's not necessarily that visible, but is going on.
I mean, I'd ask everybody, people at home, you guys as well, please do be praying for those children that we talk to in assemblies, because while you're right, it's not a ministry that people, I think, necessarily are as actively aware of that we do.
It's no less important.
It's no less important, and actually even beyond that, this is the sapling seed sowing. Most of these children might not have even heard of God, or anything they have heard about him is probably in a negative connotation and light. And actually the fact that we have any reach of these children, there are lots of churches that would kill to have, maybe not kill, but they would love to be able to be in some of these schools, especially to be in 3 schools. It's such a blessing and a joy to be able to actually share the word of God with these kids. So please do just be praying for that, and pray that, even if only one child comes to faith from it, that is such a great joy to celebrate, and something that we should be celebrating as a global church family.
Yes.
Well, that's a brilliant point to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.